Do white people experience racism? Middle ground jubilee. I'm very excited for this.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. White people also experience racism.
Oh my God.
I think racism is definitely not a one race against the other. It goes all ways. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, it doesn't matter. You could experience racism no matter what color your skin is.
I think that people have a propensity to kind of have an aversion towards what's different from them. I've been called a cracker before.
No! That was in context. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Twitch. Please don't ban me. What the are you serious, dude? Oh, no. Nor. I'm so sorry to all my Caucasian fans. I'm so sorry that she just dropped the C with the hard R like that. And you guys had to hear that. I'm sorry to Twitch for the traumatic experience that I put y'all through. I'm sorry to Twitch for allowing this to happen. Man, that shit sucks. I'm sorry.
So the argument against this position frequently is that racism is a system, not a sentiment in the United States. And I agree with that really strongly.
Yes, without systemic racism, you know what like individualized racism is? Without systemic racism and historical precedent, bad words, hurtful and bad and meanie bobini words. That's the entire circumstance, okay? That's what the problem is. If black people had material equality in this country, if there were amends that were made for chattel slavery, which is like, ethically speaking, morally speaking, I don't even know if you could ever even account for it, right? Such a historical wrong. If you could do such a thing in a hypothetical scenario, the N-word would not be as powerful as it is. The problem is systemic problems against black people still exist. It is white supremacy is baked into all of our institutions. That's the main issue. Individual prejudice versus systemic racism have such a huge divide between them. Yes. What about white minorities? Not a hot take, just a question. I don't even do you mean like a white person in a different country or something there where white people are not the majority? Is that what you're saying? Like a white tourist in China? Like, what do you mean? Or do you mean white minorities like in South Africa? Because we know how they got there and we know what they did. Because like if you're talking about South Africa, it's the same as the white supremacist shit that you saw in America.
Definitely experienced racism, discrimination. The paradox is that most of that racism is coming from white people or European
Oh my
society.
God, bro. Unless he's talking about oppression that he's faced in the form of anti-Semitism as a Jew, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And in that circumstance, like if it is oppression he's faced as someone who is Jewish, then he didn't actually face that oppression on the basis of being white. He faced it on the basis of being not white, as a matter of fact. When Jewish people were facing oppression, they weren't facing oppression as white people. They were the outside group, because whiteness as a concept, as I have described many times over, is a social construct developed with the specific and express purpose of otherizing black people and non-white people in the outgroup and justifying the untold amounts of oppression that you are forcing these outgroups into by denying their personhood, by denying their personality, by denying their humanity. So in that circumstance, he's not like experiencing anti-white racism for other white people. He's not experiencing anti-white racism. He's just experiencing anti-Semitism. If you want to know more about this, by the way, I made a video on my YouTube page called "White People Do Not Exist." Replacement without real. I think it was basically like 15 minutes of just like going through this pretty adequately. This is something that you guys can better inform yourselves on.
So I just want to say that I want to validate everyone's individual experiences. I do also believe that white people experience bias, prejudice, but the reason I did not step forward is because by definition, racism is tied to power and economics. You talked about systemic discrimination. I don't feel white people experience racism by definition and by actual concept.
What is the definition of racism and who wrote that definition?
In the late 1500s, early 1600s, there was slavery. They started bringing over slaves, but there was really no concept of classifying people in terms of race. It's just we're bringing these people over and they're slaves. What ended up happening is some of the slave owners who were white started mixing with some of the slaves. And now here you have these black people that look like the people that are owning things. So they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. The theory of race was formed to classify a group of people who would be lesser than and have less economic power, and this would be imposed against them for hundreds of years.
Why should she know that much? Man, come on, guys. Like, what do you mean? Don't do this fucking whole, like, emotional labor shit. She's on a fucking Jubilee video. I'm glad that she's there and taking on the fucking emotional labor of, like, describing the historical context behind the one-drop rule and racial subjugation. You know what I mean? This is a profoundly important educational opportunity, and she's doing the appropriate, adequate thing. If racism is based on power and economics, couldn't that still be used against a white person within certain individual spaces? Yes, you would have to try really hard, though. And in the real world, it does not really exist. In the same way that, like, every single time you look for a reason for a white person to be able to say the N-word, you're always like, well, what if I'm reading Tom Sawyer or some shit? You're literally looking. You're seeking out the oppression. That oppression is not actually baked into the way that you exist. It's so permanent. And it's such a big part of our existence, that kind of like anti-black racism, white supremacy in general, is like most people don't even recognize it when they have been socially conditioned into feeling that way. You have to try really hard to seek out like anti-white oppression and develop or craft a hypothetical scenario in which it exists. That's the main difference. It's not baked into our laws. It is not a part of our everyday existence. That's the main difference. If you're looking it out, if you're seeking it out, and if you're looking for it, and aggressively looking for it, and even failing to find it in most circumstances, so you make up hypotheticals in which it can potentially exist, and it's not the same as systemic racism that has been a foundational principle of American societal development alongside genocide of the indigenous population. Sean the Black says, white people don't even notice the systems that benefit them, which is why they have a hard time reconciling their individual experiences with the systems in place. Exactly. White privilege is just simply the lack of additional hurdles placed upon non-white people. That's it.
One person treats another person differently because of the color of their skin. To me, that's racism. I will tell you that I was stopped by the police plenty of times when I was a young man. And I will also tell you that I then decided to spend 35 years as a policeman. I'll tell you that I stopped lots of kids coming home from school. Depending on who it was that I stopped, the first thing out of their mouth would be, "You only stopped me because I'm black." And I would say,
yes, that is why I did it. And I would say, racist shit.
"You're driving a sports car with a back window that's this big. I can't see who's driving." And
oh my God, bro. Oh my God. Oh yeah, you're driving a fancy car, boy. That's why I stopped you. Oh no, I can't see you in the car. I just stopped you because you're going 95 on a 55. Okay, dude.
Now, if I treat you differently because you're black, then I'm a racist. But if I write you the same ticket that I was going to write you before I knew who was behind the wheel, I'm not.
Oh my God. Jimmy's awesome. Thank God for Jimmy, dude. Never heard these takes before. These are new ones. Man, in this imaginary scenario he made up in his head, he seems really cool. No, he doesn't. Even in the imaginary scenario that he made up in his head, he tried to like make himself look good by being like, well, you were going 95 on a 55. I'd be racist if I didn't write you a ticket because I would be treating you differently than I normally would. It's bullshit. You can tell she knows what's going on right there. So does he.
Because I've actually taught classes for the LAPD and for their cadets about these
What the
issues.
fuck?
So what I can say, which is a statistic, and which is also a fact, is that 60% of our prison population is African American.
Different issue.
Yes, but let me finish, please. Is African American males, right? When you go into a system and you are kept in that system and you're cycled through probation and there is a systematic sequence of
course the cop says, by the way, sorry to pause her, but of course the cop literally says the disproportionate incarceration rate of black people in the criminal justice system is completely different than a cop stopping a black person. Not related at all. It's like, what do you mean it's not related? It is literally the same issue. If you look at the incarceration rate or the disproportionate incarceration rate of African Americans in comparison to any other race in the United States of America, and you say, oh, well, that's not white supremacy, that's something else, it has to be one of two factors. It can be external qualities or internal qualities. And if you think these are intrinsic factors, right, then you're just racist. You're just saying it's their genes, it's their genetic predisposition to doing violent crime or whatever the fuck. But if you believe that it's external factors, then you understand that this is a systemic issue. And therefore, you believe in systemic discrimination of black people, historically and in contemporary society. That's it. Either you believe it's the material conditions, or you believe there is an intrinsic factor at play there. There's no other way out of this argument. And they have a different culture is a cop-out. That's what pussies say. That is a way to try to traffic racist ideas or white supremacist ideas under the guise of a different name. Why? Rap music is the most popular form of culture. It's the most popular commodified form of art that it has international audiences. So why is it only impacting black people differently than it impacts white people? Do you understand? The idea that it's like, oh, it's their culture is just a different way or a cowardly way of saying, no, it's it's racism, but with the extra steps. Culture is derived from either internal or external factors as well. Culture doesn't exist in a vacuum, 100%. It's actually really sad because they've gotten a lot of black people, including one of my closest child friends, to believe that black people are intrinsically prone to failure and criminality. This is also why the Democratic crime bills had hella black support in the 90s. Yes, white supremacy is so incredibly powerful that black people that are born and raised in the United States of America, even in contemporary American society, are still going to public schools that have a curriculum is outdated, antiquated, and also systematically neutered. That end up learning things from a otherwise white supremacist perspective. That's where this comes from. That's why you see even black people have these kinds of opinions about black people from time to time. There is no other product. If like I said, white supremacy is so permanent and such a foundational part of American existence or just existence in the Western capitalist universe, then of course black people themselves are also going to, that are educated in this environment, are also going to share similar values.
The police force is foundationally racist.
There's just facts. There's no middle ground in this. This is like historically true. There is no middle ground. A fundamental truth. Like it's like asking if there's a middle ground between like, did the founders have slaves? You know what I mean? Like, there is no argument to be made there. It's just historical truths versus what your own personal perspective is on the matter. You know we aren't taught that the founders owned slaves, right? Shut the fuck up. Are you serious? No fucking shot, dude. What? No, they definitely did. You just didn't understand it. What? In the American school system, you are telling me right now, because I didn't go to school here, in the American education system, you do not learn that the founding fathers, pretty much all of them, with a couple exceptions, had slaves? No shot. Bro, that literally, what you are just describing is akin to like whitewashing the crimes of Nazi Germany. Did a poll? Wait, there's a poll in the chat. Stop it, dude. Did you learn that the founding fathers had slaves? Oh my God, 70% are saying no. What the fuck? Briefly mentioned, but not intentionally taught. Dude, 68% of chat currently is firmly stating that no, they did not learn that the founding fathers had slaves in school. 67%, 3,000 votes say no, they did not learn that the founding fathers had slaves. What is happening right now? Jefferson's a big one because they said he felt bad about and was nice to them. What? He was nice to them? What does he mean? Nice to his slaves? What? First of all, you can't be fucking nice to someone you have enslaved. And also on top of that, Thomas Jefferson was like additionally fucking gross too.
I think I just really want to emphasize that I really think that there are some officers who are white that don't even believe that they're doing anything that may be racially motivated.
Yeah, Jim, he's in there. He's in the room with you, Sierra. His name is Jim. You were just talking to him. Jimbo.
I come from a police family, and I'd like to add they do offer diversity trainings in the academy. So either it needs to be more extensive, or maybe we need to take it a step back and fix the selection process, because that process could be inherently racist.
More black cops. She's right. No, she's not, dude. The entire system of policing is quite literally designed in a way to oppress marginalized communities, okay, and separate them from those who own capital. Black people have been historically oppressed by, or the earliest forms of what the police look like, which they already mentioned, the slave patrols, and that attitude still exists. you're making it seem as though like, oh, if there's just more black cops, like it'd be better. Well, there are plenty of fucking black cops out there, and they're still brutal to black people. Because when you are a cop, you have to abide by your modus operandi. The job that is given to you is to be the boot of the state, and the state wants you to oppress black people and poor people. The answer is fundamentally changing policing as an institution. If you get caught up in this liberal attitude, you will constantly find yourself advocating for the wrong things, okay? What do I mean by this? For example, Customs and Border Patrol, right? CBP, according to Americans, is doing a profoundly important job of like owning fucking otherwise law-abiding abuelas that are crossing the fucking border and undergoing incredibly treacherous conditions in an effort to simply find a better life for themselves and future generations. And you're like, oh, that if you don't understand that that is institutionally, like CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, and ICE especially ICE, is unironically a racist, white supremacist institution that is enacting white nativist border policies that were specifically designed for capitalist reasons that I've described time and time again about creating a two-tiered labor system to ensure that there is a steadily increasing flow of undocumented migrant workers that you can further exploit and use against the documented labor force, as capital owners tend to do. You don't recognize that CBP and ICE is doing that, and they have to be fundamentally changed as an institution from the top all the way to the down, all the way to the fucking bottom. Then you're failing to recognize the horrific conditions that they put people through, and you can get owned immediately. CBP is 52% Hispanic. There you go. Customs and Border Patrol is majority Hispanic. Did you guys know that? So what happened? Are they doing something different because they're majority Hispanic? No. It doesn't work that way. It's not about the race or the skin color of the person that is doing the oppression. It's what the oppression is and what their job is and what they're there to do. Well, that must mean that they're lenient on Hispanic people, huh? Yeah, notoriously.
Historically, people form groups, villages. Some people were hunters, some people were farmers.
Some people were racist.
And over hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever it is, that's how we wind up having cops, firemen, armies, and navies. Community policing as a theory is a good idea. As a practice, it has some hiccups.
Oh my God, bro. This dude is anti-community policing. Jimmy is the worst, dude. Like, community policing is a way for cops to unironically get away with getting additional funds. And homie is still saying, like, even that's not enough. He's saying the compromise is not even enough. That's wild. Like, he won't even concede on that front. That's awesome. Does he even have one example of a society that had cops? No. But also, remember, I am not a full-blown police abolitionist, and neither are, like, many anarchists that believe in police abolition. They still understand that there is still a necessity for whether it's democratically organized or not, there's still a necessity for some form of regulatory control. It's just about who gets to make those decisions and how those decisions are made. You still need an institution or a unit or an organization that is designed to maintain the presence of law and order. But the problem is, in the United States of America especially, the presence of police, specifically in underdeveloped communities that have been systematically oppressed, the presence of police does not mean law and order. The presence of police mean lawlessness and disorder, okay? They operate like occupying forces. They operate like a military in fucking, like a military force in Iraq or some shit when they're operating in Chicago or when they're operating in black neighborhoods, okay, in Los Angeles and everywhere else around the country. That's the issue. But currently, in theory, police are supposed to protect and serve the citizens, right? But all they fucking do is protect and serve the interests of capital and those who have capital.
Beats you up, and I'm friends with him. So do I want to take him to jail? He's my friend. Or I live in the same neighborhood.
Bro, this dude is actually disgusting. Like, he's using such pleasant words, but what he's saying is so fucking disgusting. He's not even agreeing to the fucking compromise of having, like, cops be from the same neighborhoods they police. Like, he thinks, no, they have to be, like, these jackbooted thugs that have no sympathy for those who they are policing.
This is going to get into a hot button topic, but I will tell you that, you know, when I watched the horrible video of George Floyd, I will tell you that I can justify many of the things that happened but I cannot justify 9 minutes on his neck or back.
Like what, motherfucker? Like what? What can you justify in that? Because that process was top to bottom. Every part of that was fucked. Yeah, homie's like, I would have done it for 8 minutes. You know what I mean? 8 minutes and like 59 seconds, but not 9. I would have done it for like 8.5 minutes. That would have been okay, but not 9. Aren't I so nice? It's okay. He's basically saying like, it's all right to fucking go into a call and like harass a random dude because the business owner called and said there was a faulty fucking check. No part of that is appropriate or acceptable. What the fuck?
I, as a policeman, and this is my personal opinion, only 2, the officer who was on him for 9 minutes, he probably spent too much time in the same neighborhood dealing with the same problems over and over again that he became jaded.
Yeah, oh, dude, he's a product of his environment, dude. Like, you don't understand, boys. Like, it's because all the people that he was being racist to leading up to this event, that's the reason why he was racist once again and actually acted out in this incredibly racist and violent way. It's never the fault of the policeman himself. It's still, he's just the product of, you know, he personally learned the racism through the experiences of the black people that he dealt with. That's awesome. That's great. Thanks, man. Thank you for justifying something. This is the best cop you could get, by the way. This guy is comforting the ACAB stands many people have. Yeah, this is why the whole like good cops exist attitude is just silly. You can be a good person. You can also join the police force under morally righteous assumptions, especially because that shit's taught in every aspect. That's like learned behavior that cops are good and they're like diving in front of bullets and diving in front of fucking dicks to stop rapes from happening and shit. That's what Hollywood teaches you. So you can ultimately join the police force thinking that you're going to be a good person and you're going to do right by your community. And there are plenty of people who do, right? I'm sure. And you can even maintain being a good person just, you know, while you're off duty. Not all cops are. Right? I would say that the minority probably good outside of policing, of course. But you can't be a good person while you're being a cop. As long as there are unjustifiable hierarchies, as long as there are unjustifiable laws that you are upholding with violence and with violent behavior, with the threatening of like taking your freedom away, which is one of the most violent things you could do to someone, you cannot be a good cop. That's why people say there's no such thing as a good cop. You can be a good person. Can't be a good cop. You put the badge on, you put the vest on, you put the gun on your fucking hip, on your holster. You go in and you do a traffic stop. You're not behaving in a manner that is consistent with a good person. That's how it works. And that's precisely why good cops get fired or killed. Straight the fuck up. Good cops quit or they're pushed out. It's not the policing culture that is responsible. It is the systemic goal that police are there to do that creates that environment and that creates that culture that pushes out the good cops.
The foundations of the police force was or still was racist. Now we can change that, but it starts with cops. Like at the end of the day, it's the bad police officers that are our issue. Not all police officers, but the bad police officers, we need to vet them out. And the good police officers, we need to, encourage them to be amongst the community.
How do we vet them out?
By making the police unions accountable, because I feel like that demographic of officers, they're actually making things a lot worse for the other officers that are actually
I want to hear it. Like, I would rather have a crusty fucking anarchist in this circumstance advocate for abolition than anything else. I just hate that. I hate the liberal attitude of just like, oh, well, there's some bad cops, but then there's a lot of good cops or whatever. Bro, how is that any different than what Republicans say? Everyone's a liberal, dude. Everyone is a fucking liberal. Holy shit, dude. Holy fucking shit. From Joe Brandon all the way to Donald Trump. Not all cops are bad. It just depends on what percentage of the police force that you think is bad versus what percentage of the police force you don't think is bad. That's all you're fucking saying. Republicans think all cops are good. Democrats think most cops are good.
The bad police officers, I hate the term like the bad apple. It's like, no, you're a faulty grenade. Like you're ruining your whole department reputation. I feel like I was held up to higher standards working at Whole Foods sometimes. I got 3 chances.
Okay, that's true. Like, that is categorically correct for the record. Yes, you do get held to a significantly higher standard when you are employed in functionally any other job in modern society. Any other job. That's literally true. If you work a minimum wage job, frying French fries at McDonald's, you get held to a significantly higher standard than a cop. And the training even for a hairdresser in most states, is more rigorous and comprehensive and longer than the training for a police officer.
Do you think police officers, and I genuinely am curious, do you think they should get paid more?
I think police officers should get paid more.
Police officers are the only people who live like who live in fucking Sweden, but in America, okay? They get like social democratic benefits, basically. They get the benefits of like living fundamentally in a social democracy. And then also on top of that, they just have literally a license to kill. What do you mean they should be paid more? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? They literally get paid so much more, especially in like overtime, and have better healthcare, better benefits than any other government employee. Get the fuck out of here. They also have the most powerful unions that back every little thing that they do.
Why do I get sent to all of the mental health cases? Why do I get sent to all of these things? Now, I'll tell you why I get sent to them, is because we'll stop sending the police there, and then something horrible and tragic is going to happen, and they're going to say, why didn't we have a cop there?
Okay, dude. No, you shouldn't, though.
Do you think we need to have different divisions like mental health and just other, or maybe even specific police that are just for the schools? Like, do you think that would help with a lot of the issues?
Also, that attitude is wrong as well. I've mentioned it time and time again. We are living in a constant state of fucking paralysis, fear-induced paralysis when it comes to these sorts of situations, okay? First and foremost, Uvalde showed once again what we already fucking knew, which is that like cops aren't necessarily any different than unarmed individuals in where it matters the most. So that's number one. Number two, cops shouldn't be dealing with like mental health trauma and mental health circumstances, because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a fucking nail. So in a lot of circumstances where they should absolutely not escalate, that's the only thing they know how to do. And they end up escalating in incredibly violent means and end up killing people when they should not have killed someone.
My name is Jimmy, and I am a retired police officer. I'm not going to tell you that there are no racists on the police department.
Damn, even Jimmy admits that there are racists in the police department. That's how you know shit's really fucked up. You know what I mean? That's how you know shit is so fucked up. Even Jimmy admitted it, okay? That's how you know.
I don't think blacks were historically treated fairly.
He said blacks.
Under the law. We have to continue to get better, but I also think we probably see racism to this day in places where it maybe isn't.
Yeah, woke culture's going too far, bro.
I sometimes wish I was a different race.
I'd say not so much these days, but definitely 100% when I was a kid, I wish I was white. It was always just being othered. And so being a kid, you just want to fit in. And for me, I wanted to be white. I just wanted to look like my mom, wanted the nice straight hair. And I just wanted to feel like included.
I have never wanted to be anything different than what I was, but that's because I really never thought about it. And to your all's point, maybe, I don't know, but maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense.
Dude, come on, Jimmy, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, this motherfucker. Bro, this is awesome. Sometimes, especially old white people, cannot help themselves, dude. It turns into word vomit with like every single fucking stereotypical, out-of-touch racist shit that you could ever say. Oh, maybe you're looking for the oppression. Everyone turns into fucking, what's the dude from Black White? What was his name? Bruno. Everyone does Black Bruno. Everyone. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Just boop, zip it, Don't do it. Don't do it. It's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. Holy shit.
But maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense of wanting something that I haven't ever had before. I'd love to have a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? It's different than any other car I've ever had. It's different than what I grew up with.
Bro, I love that he said, did you get your race car? But like literally. Jimmy said, did you get your race car? And I don't mean a card. I mean a race car, like the one that goes vroom vroom.
I was actually adopted by white parents in very diverse family. I think 6 out of the 8 of us are all adopted, all different races. I kind of have my own story apart from everyone else. I always had pride in it, but at the same time, my parents are my parents no matter the color of their skin. It's the people who raised me, and they raised me just to not look at it through the lens of race, and that's what I've always done, and I've never wanted to change my race at all. I'm Joshua, and I'm black. I've never experienced racism. I've experienced stuff from people from my own race. I grew up in a white family by white parents. I was constantly called whitewashed. It upset me but I didn't let it get to me. Being black in America, to me, is just being an American in America, just like any other person.
It's just, oh my God. Oh man, really said, my parents taught me to be colorblind. Jubilee is so wrong for this. Yeah, dude, what the fuck? They didn't have like, please, as your lawyer, I'm gonna advise you not to say anything. I mean, this is unironically exactly what I was talking about earlier. Remember that like racism is so permanent and so foundational in American societal development that, you know, black people don't even recognize when they are sometimes advocating for white supremacist values. And this is just that attitude on steroids, basically. Okay, that's what this is. I mean, she grew up in a upper middle class, like white neighborhood. He grew up in a white family that adopted him and 6 other people that were all, you know, white and non-white. These are all incredibly unique experiences. There's not like one singular black experience outside of, you know, experiencing white supremacy and being perceived as black. But sometimes your social conditioning is so powerful that it literally overpowers you in a way where you don't even fucking see the racism that you're experiencing. It happens.
White privilege exists.
I mean, America was founded by white people, for white people at the time. All of the institutions were designed to benefit white people. So, I mean, of course, white privilege lingers into society today. You can't deny that.
Where I would argue with you just a little bit is I think we throw out the term white privilege far too often for things that aren't necessarily white privilege.
Go ahead, Jimmy. Pop off. Jimmy's about to pop the fuck off on this one. You know my man has some words about white privilege. Oh, I didn't experience white privilege. Oh, back in my day, I had to walk to school 500 miles uphill both ways.
Agree with you completely on that one. I think there's generational white privilege for sure, but I think now it's almost used as a reason
Oh no.
to not try as hard.
Yeah, dude.
If we stop doing that, just really like work for it and not use white privilege as an excuse.
Okay, bro. Dude, the Thomas Sowell book just dropped, okay? I see him sitting in front of a library with just only Thomas Sowell behind him. Straight up. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous.
I would respectfully disagree. Like, all of that is true to an extent. Like, I graduated university during the pandemic, the height of it. I went abroad for university. I got 2 degrees. I graduated with honors, learned to speak 2 languages. I should have been able to get a job right away, right? No. It took me 9 months before I was able to get a job. I had to go completely outside of my field. But then when I looked at all of my white colleagues who were in my program, all of them were hired immediately.
For the record, like, this is anecdotal, right? Like, she's describing her own personal experience, except it's valid and adequate in this circumstance, especially because her own personal anecdotal experiences correspond to mountains of empirical evidence. So remember that. It's not like, you know, hiring practices and racial discrimination in hiring practices is 100% something that has been adequately studied top to bottom. I keep saying top to bottom. We know it is statistically true, yes.
I need to introduce you to my daughter. She's white. Took her a long time.
And I'm not saying that. I'm saying just
She didn't get her job in what her degree.
Yeah, that's right. My white daughter had a hard time getting a job, so fucking owned.
I respect that, but my point is saying me comparing myself to the white students who were directly in my position.
Something that I learned about recently is the privilege that exists in the medical field, specifically relating to the birthing process in giving epidurals. There was a study that's recently, or was debunked, that said that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, which then has been falsely used by people who help support births in being hesitant to provide the epidurals for Black women giving birth.
Medical racism, for the record, sounds so fucking insane, but white supremacy is that insane. When you hear about it, you're like, what? It's kind of like the Ben Shapiro take where you're like, what? Highways are racist? Okay, liberal, you're so fucking silly. It's like, no, they are. They literally were designed with a fucking racially discriminatory purpose. Same with this shit. And not only that, but it's literally taught in medical ethics in school. Medical racism is unironically taught in fucking in med school. You learn it.
Of women die in childbirth. I don't know the exact statistics. So
3 times.
Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related cause than white women. Multiple factors contribute to the disparities, such as the variation in quality healthcare, underlying chronic conditions, and structural racism and implicit bias.
I have been fetishized for my race.
you know, the standard one, oh, you're pretty for a black girl. I'm like, that's not a compliment. That's so weird to say. And like one of the go-to pickup lines for men, they're like, oh my God, what are you?
Someone in the chat said, this is the one time I wish Jimmy would speak. That would be so funny if Jimbo came up there and was like, yeah, that's right. Everybody wants some of this hot white piece of ass, and I hate it.
So there's a form of positive anti-Semitism where Jews are perceived as like being put together, coming from money, being doctors, lawyers, and, you know, women are attracted to those sort of things.
I'm not going to make any jokes about this, but like every single Jewish friend of mine would clown on this take that I know what Felix Biederman's take on that matter is by heart. He would come in and immediately be like, yeah, I'm always being fetishized for you know, having painful convulsions every time I drink anything that has lactose in it, or like the weird allergies I have. Women are always coming up to me. That is exactly what he would say, verbatim. And probably worse shit too, actually. Way worse shit, but I'm not going to say that.
We need reparations for the Black community.
I don't think people need like individualized like paychecks. Like I don't think that's gonna like work. But I think pouring funds into communities who could really use it, building jobs there, more education there, like more opportunities would do so much. Like that's how I see it should be.
Anytime that Black communities in the U.S. tried to, you know, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, they were attacked. Like, I think it was in Tulsa, they bombed the city. Black Wall Street, it was completely destroyed. So again, something needs to be done.
When the Civil War ended, there was a representative from Ohio, I can't remember his name, but he was a radical Republican and advocated for the phrase 40 acres and a mule for every emancipated slave. So there was supposed to be reparations, and there never was. And I think especially as a Jewish person, I mean, Jews received reparations for the Holocaust and are still receiving them. And in my mind, there's no amount of money that will ever undo the wrong of the Holocaust. So that you could
radical Republicans are like a Nazi? No, man. Civil War era Republican. A radical Republican in the Civil War era was basically like a fucking commie. What do you mean? Like a radical abolitionist. The original Republican Party had some relatively Marxist roots. Not only that, but our boy Carl was very fond of the Republican Party. As a matter of fact, the founding charter of the Republican Party literally talked about not only the abolition of chattel slavery in the South, but also the abolition of wage slavery in the North as well. Color me surprised that Jimmy was anti-reparations, by the way. You want me to predict what Jimmy's going to say? I think it's inappropriate. Racism is over, or slavery is abolished. Reparations would be logistically impossible to do and also not good. Not only that, but it's also racist like affirmative action. And that government giveaways is part of the reason why black people are held back. And then the dude from the white family who grew up on, you know, the texts of Thomas Sowell will nod along and say, yeah, that's true.
Similar reason, when I think of reparations, I think of something similar to a stimulus check. My worry is with the lack of like financial literacy, will we actually make strides? So I would love the idea of investing money into programs in underserved communities, something like that. But I do have a fear that even if we did have the money without...
Again, white supremacy impacts black people's opinion of black people. I'm just going to say that for no reason whatsoever, but understand that white supremacy is so powerful that it literally impacts black people's opinion of other black people.
I am all for money going to the community. I am for that because the communities right now are the way they are because of things in the past. But to give out checks to individual people, there's a difference between learning from the past and then still getting caught up in the past.
Damn, dude, he cut out Jimmy. I was wrong. I thought Jimmy would be saying this and he'd be nodding along. Turns out he's the one saying it. God damn!
I mean, if I had a time machine, I could go back in time and be like, hey, you never gave us the 40 acres and a mule. I would be all for that, and I would get on that for the people who were affected and actually went through slavery. But in today's age, like no one's experienced it and gone through it. Yes, the communities are taking hit by that, but so I mean, I've never.
You don't think your ancestors experienced slavery?
I think they do, but I haven't. I've never been in it, so why should I get a check from somebody else who never put it? You should be going way way back.
So what?
Look at her face. Oh my God, bro. She said, hold up.
So what about the people who are the descendants of the slave owners who are still reaping the financial benefits of your ancestors who slaved in those fields for literally generation after generation? You don't think that during that time, your great-grandfather could have been building
You know what's wrong about this narrative, by the way? White guy here, gonna cut across here and you know, stop a black woman from talking. Here is my take as a white guy. Problem with reparations, or the way reparations are discussed in this country, it's discussed from the framing of righting a historic wrong. Reparations now, as it stands, is not just about that. There is, of course, some like, psychic damage that you are repairing, as Dr. Cornel West talks about. But reparations, as it stands currently, is not about, oh, my bad, here is the fucking money for the slavery thing, oopsie. It's about repairing the material conditions that have been drastically undermined as a consequence of chattel slavery. So it's not even about like righting a historic wrong. It's about righting a wrong that is existing right now in American society. That's a great way to put it. Yes, it's about equalizing the economic head start white people have for 200 years and continue to have to this day, not just a head start. That shit still exists. That's why we say systemic racism still exists. In America, the number one predictor of wealth is how wealthy your parents were. Yeah, your zip code.
And you would have a multi-million-dollar franchise as they do off the backs of others. You don't think that deserves some rectification for you in the present time?
To be honest, like, no, because it's something that happened in the past. Again, I haven't experienced.
Bro said he's never experienced racism. I don't think you're gonna be able to crack through. He literally said he's colorblind.
I'm doing fine right now. I'm doing fine, and I'm not going to be all upset over somebody else's ancestors who I don't even know who enslaved my ancestors. I don't need it.
The irony of that sentiment is that quite literally part of the reason why he doesn't know who enslaved his ancestors is because of the systemic racism that he does not recognize. Like, that's the reason why you don't know, bro. What the fuck? That's crazy. He doesn't even see that. His white parents 100% fucked him over. Can you explain? I mean, what more to explain in this situation? There is a reason why black people, or the concept of black culture, exists, and it is somewhat well-defined and tangible. It's because it is a shared culture that was created through intergenerational trauma and struggle, because there was no culture to be had when black people were stolen from individual African nations and robbed of their cultural identity and turned into this one massive blob. That's where black culture comes from. That's the reason why there's a concept of black people or black culture, because it was one that was born out of the struggle of experiencing and overcoming chattel slavery. In America, when you're a white person, you can trace your lineage all the way back to the fucking potato famine. You can trace your lineage all the way back to Poland, all the way back to Greece, all the way back to Turkey. I know what my fucking grandparents and their great-grandparents did, right? I know all of that shit. That's a privilege that I have, that black people do not have. Because at a certain point, there's a cutoff. There's no documentation for where people came from as slaves. There's no Ellis Island. Do you understand? That's the reason why he doesn't fucking know who enslaved him, who enslaved his great-grandparents. And he's still out here fucking hyping that system up and saying, well, I don't see it.
But to this gentleman's point, when the government says, hey, we're gonna do a thing, obviously the government in itself saw the weight in the air of the wrong, just as the German government did. I think if I want to buy 90 gold chains, that's my business. I think it would be unfortunate, but I think that if I'm entitled to something, I think it should be in the same fashion that the people of Jewish descent got it. I think it should be in the same fashion that the people that are Japanese descent got it. So you might think it doesn't affect you, but overall, I think that we have been greatly impacted by slavery, even up to current. I just choose not to focus on it nonstop so it doesn't become something that holds me back. But I definitely think it's something that we're entitled to.
That was good. Surprised that Jimmy didn't say anything about that one. Jimmy was awfully quiet. He just let Joshua spit instead. He sat his white ass down and listened. Yeah, he did. Jimmy sat his white ass down and listened, dude.